seriously? I have the honor.
You may be seated.
Yeah, no, stand up.
For a short time.
Standing up. My goodness, all we do is sit down. Yeah. You going to recognize them now? Okay. Okay. That's you.
Is that you?
I'm awake. How about you?
Yeah. Okay. Today is Veterans Day, and we want to recognize our veterans. So everyone that's served in the military, please stand up. Gordon, Russell.
Thank you.
Guys, I just want to tell you one thing. You know, I truly don't believe that we would be standing here today worshiping God if it hadn't been
Amen.
for your service.
That's right.
At some point.
So thank you for serving.
So thank you. I think it was a real treat when we decided to move our Thanksgiving celebration to this day because I know my dad was a veteran, and you guys really did great. Thank you.
You guys rock. Woo!
Yeah, you really do. Now do I get to introduce Jay? Oh, we gotta sing America the Beautiful? More songs?
We also have family members. If you're a family member of somebody that served, can you stand as well? I know Meg's sisters. You have a family member, Kathy. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Yes. Amen.
The family sacrifice as well.
For spacious skies, America, America.
now I get to introduce Jay.
Yes.
Jay has been around us for quite a while. He is the son of Gordon. It's Gordon's son. And he happened to serve in Desert Storm in 1989 through 91. And him and his wife, Paula, live in Coral Springs. Like I said, we get to see him quite often, and it's, I'm excited. I really can't wait to hear what he's got to say to us today. So, Jay, please welcome Jay. Kids, get out of here. Not me.
Can y'all hear me all right? All right, let me set my little timer here real quick so I can be respectful for the time frame. All right. Well, thanks for coming here today. Where's Lori at? Thank you for the invite, I think. But anyone that had a role in me being able to come here today, I appreciate it. My friend Ron, I want to thank him for coming. He's a Vietnam vet, and he's seen more combat than I've ever seen. So, thank you for my family for their prayers and support while I was over there. My wife, she said to be sure to thank her for the head rubs and back rubs I got while working on the speech. I think she was kidding, but I mentioned her. I'd like to thank the Academy. No, I'm just kidding. I've always wanted to say that. But no, I'm humbled and honored to get this opportunity to speak to y'all. I'm not a war hero, but I saw very little combat. Muy poquito, I think. Is that Spanish, right? Very little. But it was a dangerous area to be in. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. To be honest with you, I was up till 2 this morning working on this stuff, and I realized yesterday I had way too much material, and I didn't want to be up here for like 45 minutes, so I really did a lot of slashing and burning trying to cut this stuff back. I really appreciate our military. It's not just because I was in it. Freedom is not free, and a lot of men and women lost their lives in service of it, and our salvation is not free either. Everything that you get for free, someone had to pay for. Jesus paid a high price for us, and a very high price. I have some kittens I got for free. They're not so free after the first year. Medical bills, several $100s, but that's all right. Give you a quick background about myself. I was born in Georgia. I got a couple sisters. Had a good upbringing in a loving home. If either one of my mom or dad tries to tell you I was a perfect child, don't y'all believe it for a second. It's not true. But I was in the Army for 2 years, 1989 to 1991. I was an infantryman. I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, in Columbus, Georgia. And I did my basic training and my advanced infantry training, AIT, there. There's 13 weeks combined. And actually after basic training, you get a chance to take a night off and go into town if you want. The only rule is just stay in your uniform. I didn't do that. I went there and bought a tank top and a pair of shorts and thought I was going to be Joe Civilian for a day. Well, that came back and bit me later, because when we got back to the base, our drill sergeants were like, all right, we saw some of you guys in your civilian clothes. You either come clean or we know who you are, so confess. So I was like, all right, I'm one of them. Well, the rest of the time I ended up being what they call a civilian group. So we'd be resting after training. Guys were like, let me get my civilian group out here. Why don't y'all drop and give me some push-ups? So for the rest of basic training, I was the civilian group. They actually, though, unfortunately, we had a guy kill himself during the training, and he had home problems or something, and they eased up on us somewhat after that. But it was, let me back up a little bit, though. As a child, I was typical red-blooded American boy. I love cowboys, John Wayne, Lone Ranger, superheroes. My mom says I used to have to pray for Aquaman and Batman and all those guys when we went to bed. But I like soldiers. I like girls. I was a big fan of Farrah Fawcett. Even joined her fan club. Actually, quick story. I wasn't supposed to do it, but her fan club was $1.50 to join. I borrowed $2 from my sister. Unbeknownst to my parents, I sent the thing off expecting 50 cents back in change. That didn't happen. But I didn't have much to send it off, so I had an expired German stamp my dad gave me. I was a little stamp collector. And I had a Band-Aid, so I fixed it on the envelope. And somebody at the post office must have had grace on this poor little guy. I thought, bless his heart, this guy's a huge Farrah Fawcett fan. We got to help him out. So weeks later, I got this package in the mail, and I was a proud card-carrying member, or whatever they gave me. But my infantry, I was mechanized, which means we rode everywhere. Unlike in Hawaii, where you walk if you're light infantry, whatever, we were mechanized. And during the war, each vehicle, our armored vehicles, they were called APCs, Armored Personnel Carrier 113. And either it had a 50 caliber machine gun mounted on top, which could take out aircraft, or what they call a Mach 19, which is a rapid fire grenade launcher. So it's pretty cool. And my platoon was attached to tanks, and the M1 Abram, which is one of the baddest tanks on the planet. I think only Israel has better tanks than we do. So we were pretty stacked. I spent about 7 months overseas between Saudi and Iraq. And basically what I want to do this morning is give you all an idea of what it's like to be a soldier over there. And then I was hoping to squeeze in a lesson, so we'll see how this goes. I'm going to take a sip of coffee because my mouth's getting dry. So first thing I noticed when I got to the desert was how doggone hot it was. I mean, even like 3 in the morning, whenever we got there's like 90 degrees. The temp during the day got up to 120 in the air, and I think 140 in the sand, if I remember right. So when we first got there, we sat around and drank a lot of water. Over there, you had occasional sandstorms, lots of flies, scorpions, different colored ones. They had green ones. They had ones with little polka dots on them. They had like dark brown. It was really cool because I love animals, and I actually had a couple pets, actually. The ones I had, they told us, you know, there's ones that are really dangerous. The ones I had, they said, were worse than a cobra bite if you got stung by them. I had 2 of them. I kept them in a little container under my cot, and but they banned the scorpion fights later on, and someone had a spider that was winning anyway, so it didn't matter. But one of the things, too, over there was like stepping back in time. You see people dressed like Bible characters, not trying to be. They're with their little flocks of sheep, and you see camels everywhere. And even from a distance, if you look at a camel straight on, it looks like a person. You can't tell. You wouldn't think that. I mean, they weren't like super fat or anything. And then from the side, you could tell. But some recreational activities we got to do, we got to play football, volleyball. I wrote a lot of letters. My mom campaigned for me. I could have probably run for governor when I got back. But I mean, I'd spend hours writing letters to people. But I got to water ski in the Persian Gulf. I was pretty stoked about that. Not all the guys got to do that, so very cool. Something I noticed over there that was different was the stars. In the desert, you can see stars forever. And on top of that, we had night vision goggles, so then you could see them even better. I mean, here you look up and you just hope to see a shooting star. There, all the time, just is really cool. And, you know, you thought about David and the Psalms and such, so that was cool. We had to polish our boots in the desert, believe it or not. You think polish your boots in the desert? Yep, you had to do it. Sand just tore up everything and got in your weapons, just tore stuff down. Dog tags, we had to wear dog tags around our neck, and we had to wear them on one of our boots because if you got blown apart, they wanted to be able to identify you. A lot of the time we wore a green, just a drab green charcoal lined chemical warfare suit. So we probably didn't smell so hot. and we had our gas mask with us and stuff because there's a real fear of chemical attack over there, which didn't happen in my area, but we had to be prepared either way. Longest I went without a shower was 3 months. I think y'all find that interesting. At least like a water shower. I mean, we had other means, but at times we get free cigarettes in line. I'm not really a smoker, but I tried it for a little bit out there, and of course they were Camels. No joke, they were Camel cigarettes. We had Santa Claus visit us one time. I was pretty happy about that. There's actually some times in the Army where I struggled with my faith, where I wasn't sure what I believed. And even though I was raised in a Christian home, my dad's a preacher, you know, I ask a lot of questions. I want to know the truth. I'm a searcher. And I really struggled. At times I felt like being in the Army is near impossible to be a Christian, which is not true. But it just, you know, you go in there and you're not as prepared as you think. Thankfully I came back around, obviously because I'm here. But, and I find too that the more you look into it, the more your faith increases. It doesn't get weaker, it gets stronger if you really give it a shot. And in fact, one of the books that helped me is a book by Josh McDowell called More Than a Carpenter. And we've got a few copies. I actually forgot them today in my mad rush to get here. But if there's someone that really has some questions or knows someone that they think you could help, it's a really quick read. It's a great little book. Had a chaplain over there during the war that was really helpful. He was a Vietnam vet, real cool guy. And he helped to give me a different perspective on the fact that I was in areas where the Bible took place and it kind of came alive. And then at the time there was a book called This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. Everybody hear that? And I got to read that over there. And it was super cool. And just, you know, little things like that helped my faith. Some of the most memorable times in the desert were, one is when we found out the war was going to start. We had a general. In fact, I see him on CNN sometimes, I think, flipping channels. His name is General Barry McCaffrey, I think it was. And he gave us this awesome, rip-roaring General MacArthur type speech, and you're all jacked up, and you got jets flying around and Apache helicopters, and you're ready to fight anybody. And that was really cool. When the war actually started, when I first found out it started, I was in a little foxhole that I dug. It was more like a shallow grave, truth be told. And a dude came and woke me up. It was nighttime, and he's like, hey, the war started, and you're just watching jets fly over, and you see them go armed to the teeth and come back empty. And the first day, we just basically sat in a tent and listened to the radio and tried to find out how our allies were doing it and such. I guess some of the major things I had over there, one day we were cooking. We used gas for a lot of stuff over there, and we were cooking. And one of the sergeants poured the gas, and a gust of wind came, and it blew up on my face. And my face and head caught fire. And I had first and second degree burns. You ever see the picture of the patriotic picture where you got the dude with the flute and the drum and all that? You know, and the guy's got his head wrapped. That was me without the musical instrument. And I missed our first mission over that. I was disappointed, but my face healed up. I looked like I was tiger striped. I mean, when it started to heal, and it was just miserable. I do not want to go to hell, y'all, because I tell you what, just that little bit of burning, you'd put something on your face, and it would cool you down just for a second or two, and then take it away, then it was back, and you was just constantly just putting water, and it was miserable. So that alone should jumpstart your faith. I remember guarding prisoners there where you could tell a lot of them just don't want to be there. They look kind of ragtag, some of them. And I know they have some groups that were better fighters than others, but these guys, they just don't want to be there. I mean, you have to do what your leader tells you. And you actually kind of felt for him. One guy I had to tell to shut up eventually because he kept telling me about a sister in Kansas going to college or something. I'm thinking, dude, you're a prisoner. You're not supposed to be talking to me like this. But we took them off, had them bury their own. That was kind of strange. It's just, I remember one guy asking me for permission to sleep. It's a strange sense of power, not one where you just feel good about yourself, but it's just kind of sobering, you know, that someone asks you permission to go to sleep. We had one day where we were told to be on highest alert. We had to pack up all our gear, load up our vehicles, and we were supposed to go and confront the enemy. And we waited a little bit, and all of a sudden this formation of Apache helicopters comes just zipping overhead, and it was awesome. And so we waited and waited, didn't go anywhere. Got a call back, they'd taken them out. So I'll forever, in my heart, love the Apache helicopter, because who knows, we might have lost people that day. I remember the first time I actually saw a dead enemy soldier, and it was sobering. I remember standing there and just staring at the guy, because I wanted it to really sink in. I don't want that to be me. Man, I should have looked at you. Now it's like, I just saw my wife crying. Now I'm starting to cry. Now I was tearing up during the patriotic song. I'm like, this is not good. I'm about to go on stage. I can't do this. You got to look away, look away. The main day I remember out there was the most impactful for me is the day we got called to deal with the enemy. We had to go and check an area. When we got there, there was some enemy off in the distance. We were launching 50 cal rounds at them, and they kind of got out of dodge. But there was another empty truck here, and then over here there was an armored vehicle, and it looked empty, you know, we thought. So we were just kind of checking out the area. We walked over to the armored vehicle, knocked on it, walked around it. So we were pretty mellow. A little while later, we're all standing, probably, I don't know, the vehicle's probably from here to that wall away. Maybe a little further, I don't remember now. You're talking like 28 years. Dude starts shooting out of it at me and a couple guys standing there. And so I take cover behind our armored vehicle, and I'm laying on the ground, hiding behind it. Our driver apparently doesn't know I'm there. He starts to back up. I was, no exaggeration, within like a second losing my legs from probably about here down. And as I thought about it the other day, I was like, you know, I would have just lost my legs. I may have died, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. They'd have to medevac you. I don't know if I would have survived. And you wonder about what prayers were being thrown up for me back here and the timing of it. It'd be nice to know in heaven, was there a prayer that made a difference where I didn't lose my legs? You know, you don't know. You hear stories like that, and they're true. And so we called in a tank to take out the armored vehicle. You can't just shoot back at it. You need something stronger to go in. And so we got a front row seat to a tank blowing up that vehicle and just knocking that guy into the next life. And, you know, if he would have just kept quiet, he probably would have survived. I don't know why he actually let us know he was there. But, man, I'm taking way too much time. I'm looking at the clock here. It's going fast. I was very thankful that we had air superiority over there. I remember looking up and thinking, wow, you know, if those guys were the enemy, it would be scary, because you saw them constantly going on their missions and coming back, and it would be very scary. I want to cut real quick and talk about the culture in our country right now. There's a lot of hostility. I think over there is clear who the enemy was. Over here, not so much. You know, you think about who is your enemy. Is it, if you're Republican, is it Democrat? Is it your boss, your neighbor? Hopefully not your spouse. But you know, what's the first thing you think of when you think of enemy? Will you put the picture up for me, Paul? All right, up on that screen, y'all see that? Look at it for a few seconds. Okay, take it down, please. Who in here saw an older lady? Raise your hand, please. Okay, who saw a young lady? Okay, can you put it back up? For those that saw the young lady, look to her ear. That's the eye of the older lady. And the jawline of the young lady is the nose of the old lady. If you saw the old lady, the young lady, look at the old lady's eye and look to the left. That's the nose of the young lady with a feather coming out of her hair. Everyone see that now? So basically, you can take it down. Thank you. basically, we all looked at the same picture and saw something different, okay? And I think sometimes in our culture, we look at one person and we think we see one thing, but maybe we don't really see the right picture. And I want to talk about that, especially in this time with all the politics and such, which I'm not going to get into, so don't worry about that. But I think something that determines your enemy might be where you live. If you live in Churchill, Canada, you got kids that walk to school and they've got polar bears they got to worry about. If you're in India, thousands of people die from cobra bite every year. So a lot depends on just where you're at. If you're born in America during World War II, then Japan and Germany are your enemies. If you're during Civil War, it might be your own brother. At my mom and dad's house, I've seen some brown widows. You've heard of black widows? They've got brown widows down here too. They look just like them, but they're lighter colored and have the hourglass and stuff. One day I was on the back porch and I saw my nephew's tricycle. And all I saw was a single strand of web. And I went and I tapped it. And I thought, oh no, they're back. And the reason I knew is because they have a really, really strong web. Their web is actually stronger than steel, the same size. So I flipped the bike over, and up under the seat was a big old brown widow. That's the enemy. Whoop. Am I back on? You can hear me okay? Okay. So, a lot depends on where you're at. In our country, unfortunately, the enemy tends to be the other person that shouldn't be. Can you put up the other picture, please? Thank you. That dude on the bottom, underneath the angel, that's a real enemy right there. It's not your brother. It's the devil. His name is Satan, and Satan is not just a mere metaphor for evil. He's not a guy in a cartoon suit with a pitchfork and a tail. He's very real. I can tell you stories of people that have at least encountered the demonic. I have myself, or the angelic. It's no joke. It's very real. And it's just the spiritual war that we have is just as real as Desert Storm was. It's every bit as real. It's every bit as real as Vietnam, and it's going on. And the name Satan actually means accuser and adversary. And John 10:10 says he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's doing a pretty good job of it. But see, the thing is, he's limited in his abilities. He's not omnipresent. He's not omniscient. He's not omnipotent. He's not God. He's a created being. He is limited in what he can do. And it's not like we're waiting to see who's going to win. God's already won. Jesus won. Jesus embarrassed Satan at the cross. It's that simple. So Ephesians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. 1 Peter 5:8, be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking for someone to devour. So if you think about it, how do you defeat an enemy like that? For conventional warfare, you defeat, like in Iraq, we defeated them with air superiority, tanks, the like. For spiritual warfare, you need supernatural weapons to defeat a supernatural enemy. So, and you know, being a soldier, it helps me look through a soldier's eyes and look at the whole thing differently than if I hadn't been. If I was a farmer, I could relate to the farming stories in the Bible. If I was a vineyard grower, I could do that. But being a soldier, I can relate differently to that. Well, I'm really going to have to cut some of these notes out. Doggone, this goes fast. All right. I'm going to tell you a really abbreviated story of a guy named Mitsuo Fuchida. Basically, he was, let me find my notes here. He was the pilot that led the attack against Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Japan sent 360 torpedo planes, bombers, and fighters to attack our Navy in the Pacific Ocean. And 39-year-old Mitsuo Fuchida led it. He was very proud of it. He was quoted as saying that his heart was filled with joy at my success. It was the most thrilling exploit of my career. That's how he felt about killing our guys. That Japanese invasion at Pearl Harbor is what led to us joining the war with Britain and our allies against Hitler's Germany. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. I'm going to really fast forward and make a long story short here. Fuchida was a war hero, obviously. He was a heavy drinker, smoker. He was, you know, things were pretty good for a while. And then he got injured one day on an attack that we did on a ship he was on. And he had just gotten surgery for appendicitis. And, oh, back in there. And he was supposed to stay below deck, and he ignored the doctor's orders and went up deck. And that saved his life. The guys that stayed below were burned and killed. They got trapped underneath. That saved his life. So that was one thing to think about. But then later on, he was talking to Japanese prisoners that came back after being prisoners from the United States, and asked them how we were treated. And they said, we were treated well. And that intrigued him. And he talked to a lady named, find it here, Peggy Covell. Says, a young lady who visited and cared for Japanese prisoners. They asked her why she was so kind to them. Her reply was, because Japanese soldiers killed my parents. It turned out that her parents had been Christian missionaries who'd been captured and beheaded as spies. Peggy's a special lady. Peggy was convinced that her parents would have forgiven their executioners before death because she'd do any less. And so she actually volunteered to work with the Japanese prisoners of war. That had a huge impact on this guy. In 1948, a missionary gave Fuchida a gospel tract on the Tokyo railway station. He read it. On April 14, 1950, he prayed for forgiveness and became a Christian. So you're talking about a guy that was super proud of bombing America, was a leader in the act that caused us to even get involved in World War II, and he changed. And a one-time enemy doesn't mean that he's a lifetime enemy. People do change. And we need to try, and this is me too, we need to try to look at people in a way that you don't write them off. We don't know someone's story. Yeah, my wife and I sometimes watch a show called Intervention, and it shows stories of people that, it's actually real documentary stuff, where they're on drugs, or they're having an eating addiction, or they're alcoholics or whatever. And when you first see them on the screen, you're like, I do not like this guy. I don't like this lady. You know, just how they carry themselves. And then it's like, oh, that's why they're like that. They were raped when they were a kid, or they were, you know, their family members were shot and killed, or something, you know, crazy stories. And then you do a 180, and then you go from, I don't like you, to, well, can I give you a hug? You know, it's like you feel compassion for these people. And I think we need to be more like that in our culture. And I'm almost done here, folks, because I've already gone over my time. Sorry about that. This is going very fast. There's a guy by the name of Johnny Lee Clary, and he used to be, let me find my notes here. Anyone ever heard of him, by the way? Johnny Lee Clary? Nope? Okay, good. I was hoping to find stories that y'all didn't know anything about, like the Fuchida guy. Actually, Ron, I got that story from a book that I bought on a gift card you gave me, so thank you, sir. Much obliged. But basically, Johnny Lee Clary was a Grand Imperial Wizard for the KKK. And in 1979, he went to a radio debate with a gentleman by the name of Reverend Wade Watts. He was a black state leader for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and he worked with Martin Luther King. And at the debate, they shook hands, and Johnny pulled his hand back real quick, and the guy's like, "Don't worry, Johnny, it's not going to come off." And Johnny had broken a Klan rule. You're not supposed to touch a non-white person. So he broken a rule. So he started calling him names and stuff, and the Reverend Watts is like, you know, he's like, "God bless you, Johnny. You can't do enough to make me not love you." So the Klan wasn't too stoked over this guy. They started going by his house, calling him names. They threw trash on his lawn, got no response. This guy was really solid. They showed up wearing their sheets and hoods one time, burned across the street from this guy in the yard across the street. So you would think that was straight fear and trembling into Reverend Watts. That didn't happen. He came out and he's like, "Can I get you guys some marshmallows and hot dogs?" So that didn't go well. So then Johnny's like, all right, y'all have any more bright ideas? What do we do to this guy? So they tried to set fire to his church and burn it down. Luckily, they didn't succeed in that. But so one day, Johnny calls up Reverend Watts, and he's like, hey, boy, you better be afraid because we're coming to get you. You don't know who we are, but we know who you are. Hey, Johnny, thanks for calling. He's like, dear Lord, please forgive Johnny for being so stupid. So this guy was pretty cool. So Johnny was at the end of his rope. So one day the Klan, they got like 30 guys together, and they followed him to a restaurant. And Reverend Watts is sitting down at his table with a plate of chicken. And he said, you better think real hard, boy, before you eat that, because what you do to that chicken is what we're going to do to you. So he picked up the chicken, and he kissed it. And even the Klansmen started laughing. And then it was embarrassing. So there, next thing you know, the Reverend is driving away in the parking lot, honking, waving his horn, saying, see you later. So they were embarrassed. So anyway, eventually, Johnny got saved. He became a Christian. And Reverend Watts invited Johnny to come preach at his church. Half the people didn't show up because they thought it was a joke. They were afraid they might get bombed. Not a joke, but they thought it was like a prank or something. And the day that Johnny showed up to preach, Reverend Watts had an adopted young daughter named Tia. And she didn't want anything to do with God because she had seen how her father was treated. But that day, Johnny preached and she got saved. And Johnny and Reverend Watts ended up being best friends. They became best friends. They actually toured the country and talked to people about God, and it was pretty cool. And he became her godfather. Johnny became her godfather. So, all right, I'm going to close on this, y'all, because I've gone over my notes. Please forgive me, or on my time. But basically, my dad gave me the chance to speak today. It was offered that we both could. He wanted me to do it. And I was like, are you sure? And even when I found out Lori asked, I'm like, why me? You know, I'm not a public speaker. But I just want to end with this. To me, the United States is the greatest country of the world. If you're not from here in your country, you like better, that's okay. I have no problem with that. But it's the greatest country. And I love our flag. I love our spiritual heritage. I love our freedom. Yesterday morning, I was working on my notes, and my wife had gone and got coffee. She likes to take her dog to 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts and get coffee. And I said, pick me out a mug. She picked me out a mug, and the one that said, the mug actually says, freedom is not free, but it's worth fighting for. And I completely agree with that. It's got a really fierce-looking eagle on it, American flag, and I'm willing to die for this country. I'm glad I didn't have to, but see, we're not a perfect country, but no other country is either. And you know, I could have been born in some third world country where you're starving and not knowing where your next meal is coming from. So I feel really blessed, and I just want to leave you with these last 4 quick points. The real enemy is Satan, not your neighbor. Okay, that's 1. 2, be thankful to live in the United States. We're all super blessed to be here. 3, try to adjust your lens, like in the picture we looked at, to look at people differently. Look at your neighbor differently. Look at them with compassion. Try to see them more like God sees them, actually. And, you know, let love and compassion win the day. And 4, let your light shine in a really dark and hostile world. And it's a terrible thing to be the victim of hate, but it's even worse to be the possessor of it. That's it. Thank you all.
Actually, I had planned to do that, and I have to say I'm so very, very thankful for Jay, for his faith, because we love him, we're thankful for him, and for Paul as well, but I had changed my mind, son. I didn't want to do anything to take away from what you had said. But I'm here. So when Jay was home, before he went to Desert Storm, he was home on leave, and he was going to be going from there to California to train more in the desert, because he was mechanized infantry desert trained. And instead, they sent him straight over there because he was with the first guys that got there. And while he was home, it was nice to see him, but his message was terrible. He said, I still believe in a God, but I'm just not sure about Jesus. I used to, believe like you and Mom, but I'm not sure right now. That was bad at any time, but it was a whole lot worse when he was going into combat. And I said, don't believe in Jesus just because your mother and I do. But don't also reject him just because the guys you're serving with don't believe in him. Look for the evidence, and then go wherever it leads you. And I did give him the book More Than a Carpenter, and ask him to read that. And if you, like he said, he was going to bring some copies, because we have some copies. If you have any where you need to boost your own faith, or somebody could use it, I've got some copies at our office that we'd be happy to give you. That's why we got them. But Jay left, and my brother was a lieutenant colonel in infantry, and he knew all about what Saddam Hussein could do. He knew about the chemical weapons. And I would find myself at home, or at the office, and all of a sudden, fear would wash over me. And I just have to stop. And several times a day, I'd spend a half hour just praying for Jay. The things I asked for was, number one, that he would not be lost. And then also, that he would not be killed or wounded or messed up emotionally, like so many guys have been that have faced this horrible thing called war. And this went on for weeks. One morning, as I was lying beside the bed, on my face, I had this Bible, and it's kind of floppy, and I was in prayer for Jay. And I said, God, you know how much we love him, but I know you love him a lot more than we do. But please, I can't stand this any longer. We love him, but he was never ours. He just brought him into our lives, but he's yours. So whether he's going to be lost or saved, or whether he's going to be killed, or whether he's going to be wounded or messed up emotionally or some other way, he's in your hands, and you love him more than I do. But please, give me an answer so I can begin to deal with him. I do not believe that you should ever do this, that you should. I took my Bible, put it in my hand, so I was lying there, and I dropped it. I felt compelled to do it, but it's a horrible way to get God's guidance. And I've got a note in this particular Bible. This is the Bible I had with me. August 20th, 1990. While agonizing in prayer for Jay during the Mideast crisis, I asked God to give me a scripture concerning Jay. I closed the Bible and let it fall open, and this is the first thing I saw. It's Jeremiah chapter 39, While Jeremiah had been confined in the courtyard of the Lord, the word of the Lord came to him. Go and tell Ebed-Melech the Cushite. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. I'm about to fulfill my words against this city through disaster, not prosperity. At that time they will be fulfilled before your eyes, but I will rescue you on that day, declares the Lord. You will not be handed over to those you fear. I will save you. You will not fall by the sword, but will escape with your life because you trust in me, declares the Lord. And I felt God's presence so clearly. I felt like Jesus' presence so clearly. And I felt like he was right back here. And I turned and looked. I didn't see him. But I felt so, and I knew Jay would be okay. As a matter of fact, he's not as smart as he looks.
Oh, he's smarter. He's smarter.
After he got back, we were talking about this. He said, yeah. Before we went into battle, we're all gathered around him. The guys are saying, I wonder if I'll come back. And Jay said, I said, yeah, you'll come back. He said, but I didn't know if they would, but I knew I would. He said, he took some chances because he knew he was going to be okay. They shouldn't have taken. He sounds so smart. You don't test God.
No.
But then a few days later, Meg asked me, have you ever read Psalm 91 in reference to Jay? Because we had sent this over to him to let him know. And I said, no, why? She said, read it. I said, no, why? Read it. I read it. And this is what it says. I want to share this with you because I've got a point with this. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he's my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. Mark this. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you make the Most High your dwelling, even the Lord who is my refuge, then no harm will befall you, no disaster will come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent, because he loves me, says the Lord. I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him with long life, and I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. I said, hon, how did you come up with that? She said, you know how you got that passage in Jeremiah? Oh, man, don't do that. It's not reliable, but if God compels you, well, that's something else. But with me, it wasn't until I gave up my will for Jay. I was telling God what he needed to do, and I was asking him, it was all good. But there's so many things in our lives. God loves us more than we could ever love anybody. He sent his son. Jesus knew before he ever made this world, before he ever made us, that he's going to pay the price to save us, because he wants us to spend eternity with him in heaven. And the angels rejoice when anybody repents. Because that's the whole purpose of it, that we do that. But we have to want his will. The most important thing is to love God. And the scriptures tell us that to love him is to obey him, to want his will. If you look, everything you see about Jesus, everything Jesus said about himself, everything anybody says about him in the scriptures was to do God's will. That's the key. And secondly, God's will is that we love one another. What Jay was saying here about the way we treat one another. God really does love you. But that was my message.
So as you do every Sunday, the altars are open. It's not a scary place. It's a great place to come and talk with the Lord. If you just want to talk to the Lord, come over on this side. you want to have someone talk with you, go on this side. Again, nothing magical. It's just a place that says that, hey, I want to talk to the Lord. I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Stay thou nearby. Temptations lose their power when thou art nigh. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I don't know about you folks, but I know I need the Lord. Every day, every hour. We have it made here in the United States. As much as the messes that we see on the news all the time, the Lord has blessed us immeasurably, immeasurably. We need to tell people about the Lord. And if you don't have Him within yourself, there's no way you can tell somebody else about the Lord and what He has done for you. You have to come to Him in humbleness and brokenness, and He will support you and guide you in everything that you do, but you have to surrender yourself to Him. Or else coming to church doesn't do anything. I hate to tell you. I can sing as much as I want up here, and you can say, that's really nice. That's not going to save you. Sitting in that chair out there is not going to save you. I hate to tell you this, also reading the Bible won't save you. There's only one way, and that's to surrender to Christ, to make Him Lord of your life, saying, I've sinned, and I need you to save me. If you don't do that, that burn that Jay was talking about, that's the long-term plan. It's a terrible one, but it'll be your choice. Heaven's a wonderful place. Christ is a wonderful Savior. He's gone through so much for each of us that's unmeasurable. So if you don't know Him, choose Him today. We'll sing one more verse only, just one more. Verse 4. I need thee every hour. Teach me the way. Come quickly and abide, or life is vain. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. Amen. Would the ushers come forward, please? Rick, would you offer the prayer, please? we stand and lift up our hands. For the joy of the Lord is our strength. We bow down and worship Him now. How great, how awesome is He. And together we sing. Everyone sing. Holy is the Lord God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. Holy is the Lord God Almighty. The earth is filled with His glory. The earth is filled with His glory. Amen. Mr. Jim.
We've got announcements, and one thing to remember is we are collecting food for the food baskets. We're extremely low on food baskets. Also, I got bad news from the city of Coral Springs. They are not including gift card in the baskets this year, so we are low on funds for that. We're also collecting, I guess it's starting today, toys for the Broward Outreach Center. That'll be going on until December the 7th. We've got dinner today.
Yay. To honor our veterans.
Lord,
Dinner, yay! Woo!
in appreciation for our veterans.
Yay!
And
Please let them go first in line.
yes.
Just give me a hint. If you're staying for lunch, raise your hand.
Good.
Okay, because I'm seeing if I need extra tables. Okay, all right.
Okay, and then the 16th, our youth are heading out to Orlando to their youth convention. So pray for Paul. Paul, Victor, yeah, there's no traveling mercies. Just pray for Paul and Victor and Shannon and them. Because I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to a youth convention, but I've never been as an adult, but I can tell you right now, it is one of the best things that can happen to you when you're in youth. It just
Pray for hearts to be changed.
yeah, it does. It not only change but strengthen.
Yes.
See, that's some of the things. I mean, we've got some really good youth.
Yes.
I hate to call them kids, but I don't like that. They're young adults now.
Yeah.
Most of them are young adults, and the decisions they're making now will affect our church in the future. And so I support them 100% spiritually, not financially. Just my own kid. We've got corporate prayer November the 18th. Again, that's something that if you haven't attended it, it's something that will take your spiritual life another step forward. To get together with your church family and just pray for each other. In a roundabout way, that's our battle, our spiritual warfare, the way that we can love each other and help each other get through the hard times. Speed limiters unlimited, November the 29th. You guys are going up to Hope Sound Bible College, and everything else is in the bulletin that you can see. So let's pray. Anything else?
When you leave, you're going to go down the hall and go through the kitchen. Don't go in the first door. Go all the way down, make a left, and go through the kitchen. Okay, and go that way. Okay.
But veterans
Right.
first.
Veterans
And
first.
veterans first. They got to be first.
You can bring food throughout the week. Any excess we'll donate to the Broward Outreach Center. So you can donate all the way up until next Sunday. Maybe. No, it's all fluent since they changed so much stuff, and they're right now there's so little food that we've actually stopped taking new requests. It is what it is. I don't know whether you guys know it, but actually the city of Coral Springs is providing 20 baskets. So, I mean, if we had to feed anybody right now, we'd get two times. That's all we got. So, I mean, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord, and we thank you for the message that Jay gave us today. And Lord, this isn't necessarily a happy holiday. Our veterans sacrificed. And Lord, we just thank you for that. We thank you that we live in a country that has freedom and allows us to worship you. And Lord, we ask that you strengthen everyone in this congregation so that they're able to love in this darkness, in this dark world. Lord, as we get ready to gather and fellowship and eating, Lord, we ask that you bless the food. And thank you, Lord, for the people that prepare it. Lord, we ask that you bless the pulpit committee and December the 9th when we have a pastoral candidate come in.